estimating fractions. Now our new unit is going to be over all the fraction operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. So the first thing we're going to look at today is how do you estimate fractions? If a fraction is a proper fraction, in other words, if it's like a half, a 2/3, 3/4, 5/17, these are what I'm talking about when I say round fractions. 5/7 would be an example. 3/4, 1/8, 10/12, and so forth. Okay, those are examples of when I'm talking about fractions. You're either going to round them to 0, to the nearest half, or to the nearest whole number, to wholes, to one whole. Now, in order to do any of these estimations, sometimes drawing pictures helps you a little bit. I'll teach you both ways, or we'll go over both examples. Okay, let's take a look at the example of 5/7. That was just the first topic, 5/7. I asked myself, looking at the denominator, if I had something divided into 7 sections. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, they're divided into 7 equal sections. If I had 5/7 of it shaded, okay, they get 5/7 shaded. Is it closer to 0? Where's your halfway mark on 7? Okay, 3.5. I'm going halfway between here, 3.5. So I oftentimes put like a little squiggly line there, showing that it's 3.5. Okay, that's my halfway mark. Or is it closer to the whole? Okay, now let's look at it. We have 1, 2, 3.5 sections. Okay, then let's go the halfway mark between here. I have 1, 2, 3, and a half of that one. So halfway between 3 is 1.5. If I go over another, just a little bit more, what's it going to be? About right here, correct? Did it quite make that far? No, it didn't. So this one's going to be closer to a half. Now 5/7 is a tough number to try to estimate because you're saying, okay, is it going to be closer to a whole or is it going to be closer to half? The target number was 3.5. Okay, so if you want to do it without a picture, if I think 3.5 out of 7 compared to 7 out of 7. Got that? And we can put it on a number line. Here's 0. Here's 1. How many tick marks do I have? 7. Well, actually, counting 1, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's your whole. Why did I choose 7? That's what we call the units. In this case, your unit fraction is a 7th. So I've divided it into 7 pieces. The halfway mark, 1, 2, 3.5, right here. You're asking yourself, is 5/7, 1, 2, 3, 4, or excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is 5/7 going to be closer to 1 or to the halfway mark? It's closer to half because here only I have to take 2 full jumps. Here only have to take 1 and then a half a jump. Okay, so it's going to be closer to 1/2. Now you can decide, do I like the picture? Do I like a number line? Or am I trying to say, is 5 going to be closer to 3.5? Well, it's 1.5 away from that one. Or is it going to be closer to 7? It's 2 away from that one, so it's got to be closer to the half. So you choose which method you like to use when you're trying to estimate fractions. Let's take a look at another one. This one was challenging because it's not really clear-cut and dried. Is it closer to half or to the whole? Because of just where it lies. But now 3/4 is a little different story. If I'm looking at 3/4, is it going to be closer to, well, it's bigger than a half. Is it going to be closer to a half or to a whole? It's going to be a whole because it is going to be right smack in the middle. If I do my number line, 0, 1, and I'm here at 3/4, and this is your half, it's right smack in the middle. So what do you do if it's right there in the middle? You go ahead and round it up. Okay, so that one you probably didn't even need a picture for. Same thing with 1/8. 1/8 isn't very much, but if you do a number line on it again, 0 and your whole, okay, and I have 1/8 clear down here, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. This is your halfway mark. You can easily see it's closer to 0. 10/12. Try that one, and then whisper it to your partner. See if you agree. Okay, now this one. In your brain, you might think, what's half of 12? 6. So is 10 going to be closer to 6? Well, it's 4 units away. Or is it going to be closer to 12, which would be a whole? It's closer to 12, so it would be closer to a whole. Okay, so that's rounding the fraction part. Now, the second step here, it says round mixed numbers to the nearest whole number. What is a mixed number? Okay, 4 and 3/10 would be a good example. All right, so let's write that one down, 4 and 3/10. Okay, now this one, you just look at the fraction part and ask yourself, is 3/10 going to be closer to 0, a half, or whole? But this time it's not really a 0, it is 4 on the number line. So you're going between 4 and 5. Is it going to stay a 4 or is it going to go a 5? You don't need to go 4 1/2. Okay, the only time you use that half if it's just a plain fraction, what you call a proper fraction. So this one, you're asking yourself, okay, is it closer to a half? Or is it a half or over? Is this one? No, it's not half or over, so it's going to be closer to 4. This one, they're easier because you're just saying, is it over a half or under a half? If it's a half or over, I go up. If it's under a half, I go back down, stay the same. If I'm at a half, you go on up. For instance, if I had 5 and 3/6, well, what's half of 6? 3, so it's right at a half, so I need to go ahead and take it up. It's closer to 6. Any questions on the mixed numbers? I think they're a little easier. All right, and then we learn to draw pictures or number lines in order to help us out. Okay, let's put this to practice then. We're going to estimate the sum of 3 2/3 plus 5 1/6. Now, in order to estimate, what am I going to take each one of these to? The nearest whole number. Okay, what's this one going to be? And this one? 5. This is over the halfway mark. Half of 3 is 1 1/2. Okay, so that's why it goes up to 4. Half of 6 is 3. Well, we're going to stay at 5. So 4 plus 5 is 9. So this is approximately 9. The squiggly equal sign means about or approximately. It's about. All right, say I have 4 3/8 times 5 1/4. Okay, what's this going to be closer to? 4. And this one's going to be closer to? So this is approximately 20. All right, then we'll do one division. I have 8 7/9 divided by 2 3/4. Okay, 8 7/9 is close to, okay, and divided by 3 is approximately then 3. Now we have to be careful with division though. I really don't like just to go ahead and round always on division because sometimes that doesn't work. Suppose this had rounded to a 4. Is that nice? No. So let's take a look at what happens when we get some division problems that don't come out with nice numbers that what we call are compatible, that they go nice together. Okay, so let's say we have this division problem. Now, if I were to think of the rounding, this would be rounding to 10, and this would round to 4, correct? But that doesn't go nicely, does it? They're not compatible numbers, so I'm not going to do that. Let's see what this is closest to. What is it? 10. Okay, now ask yourself, what is close to 4 1/5 that 10 goes into nicely? 5. So 10 divided by 5 is, it equals 2. If you did 8 divided by 4, what do you still get? 2. So that's a good option. Okay, if you do this one first, okay, I'm going to think of this as about 4. Now, what's close to 9? Well, 10. That'll divide evenly by 4. It would be 8. The only thing is, Lily, I'm kind of making a choice. Do I go to 8 or do I go up to 12? You're in a little bit of a dilemma, but you could say that 9 and 7/8 would be closer, 8 would be closer to it than to go clear up to 12. Does that make sense? So either way, you're going to get a 2. Just make sure you show what compatible numbers you're using. Because when you estimate, there's some little bit of a degree of having something a little different. Okay, it might not always come out to be the same. You might estimate a little differently, but it might be close, and that's okay. That's okay. It's not all about really exact, it's getting in the ballpark. Let's say that I had 23 3/4 divided by a half. Okay, now there's a couple things you need to look at here when we have a fraction in this area. This is going to be close to what? 24. Can I divide 24 into halves? When I do, what I'm saying is I have this big long sheet of paper and I have 24 little marks here. And I'm cutting them in halves. Now, how many little pieces do I have? 48. Okay, so this would be approximately then 48. It is dividing, but what I'm doing, JJ, is I'm taking 24 little strips and I'm cutting them all in half. My pieces are going to be smaller, but I have 48 pieces. So be careful when you have these, and you would probably leave it at a half. You either go to 1 or a half. If you have something here, so if I had something like 3/5, go ahead and take it, divide it by a half. And when you divide anything by half, you're really taking it times 2. Let's say I have 7/8 divided by 2/5. Ooh. Okay, let's get this rounded first. 7/8 is close to 1. 1 divided by, now this is going to be about a half, because 2 1/2 is half of 5. This is close enough to a half. Don't ever take it down to 0. Okay, I don't think you'll have any today where you have to make this into 0. What is 1 divided by half? Well, I have one piece of fabric. I'm cutting it in half, so how many pieces do I end up with? Equals 2. So this is approximately 2. Any other questions? Okay, today we focused on estimating fractions.